All right, look, last time I talked about me and dog. Sid says to his dog, or to the audience, he's telling a story too about him and Sid. I mean, his name was Sid. I mean, him and his dog. I'm only a kid. My name is Sid. I'm just an ordinary kid. That's a story about Sid, okay? Me and dog. And I said last time, how I feel that, it's just more than a synchronicity that if you spell out dog, and it means dog, D-O-G, and then you look at it backwards, you read it backwards, and it says G-O-D, God. And I don't think that's something to be taken too lightly, that phenomena. I think it's a secret code, a message. I think it's by design. Truth will find a way to break through the cracks. I mean, I'm saying. That's what the whole message is: the cracks in the sidewalk and the plants growing out between the cracks. Sometimes, we are we're like the flower in the sidewalk growing out from between the crack. And I use a flower because it's more pretty than a weed. It means something. Look, I just am following up my last one. This is day 17 of my fast. All right, and I gotta document that because I didn't even do it when I wrote out the other one. I started talking about how Sun Tzu was actually, he was 500 years before Christ too, just like the Buddha. His writings were found in Japan, but I think he was from China. But, we have his 21 principles, and we know that now. And they're legit and true, and you can't get any better than that. But look, it just kind of hit me full force because I continued watching, Alan Turing, the man who cracked the Nazi code. And I was watching it, and I'm going to play this little part right here.
It is customary in a talk or article on this subject to offer a grain of comfort in the form of a statement that some particularly human characteristic could never be imitated by a machine. It might, for instance, be said that no machine could write good English, or that it could not be influenced by sex appeal or smoke a pipe. I cannot offer such comfort, for I believe that no such bounds can be set.
Beginning in February 1944, Colossus automatically decrypted the communications exchange at the highest level of the German General Staff. Infiltrated at the heart of their communications, the Allies were poised to launch the biggest hoax of World War II, the famous Operation Fortitude.
Operation Fortitude was conducted well before the D-Day landings of June 9.
You see, now they're talking about Operation Fortitude. And that was a deception. And that goes right down into Sun Tzu. Look, some of the first principles of Sun Tzu is you have to know yourself. Number one, you got to know yourself. Number two, you got to know your enemy. And later on down the road, after you get some of the basic things, hammered out, he talks about, like things like, deception, misinformation, indirection, and what I talked a little bit about the principle of indirection that I learned from my chaplain, and I know is in Kabbalah too. And Sun Tzu is also another person who talks about the principle of indirection in the Art of War. Okay, It's just like a magician's sleight of hand. I mean, you make the person look over here when the real activity is taken over here. And I was saying earlier that this is the way our politics and this is the way our government and actually the things that we think are like the real big deals of the day are not really the big deal of the day, because there's a sleight of hand going on. That's what we're looking at. But there's a whole nother stratus in society at a higher level. They're looking at a completely different picture. And when you go through the stratas, as I have done in my life, I have made these discoveries, so I'm talking about personal experience of the process, all right? That you come to another area and then you realize, well, all along you were thinking about one thing when that really wasn't even the issue at all, okay? That's what you're preoccupying yourself with. And, look, man, ignorance is the reality that you always need to strive for, because you need to understand your own ignorance. Look, that's why T.S. Eliot, he said it best. I mean, about understanding. It's not a cycle of life, going to the place you started and understanding it for the first time. Right? Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, now there's, when I was in seminary, I was studying some theology, like neo-Orthodox theology, Karl Barth, and I think Karl Barth was actually like the real beginning of neo-Orthodoxy, and he was kind of like the same spirit of Soren Kierkegaard. I mean, Soren Kierkegaard said, purity of heart is willing one thing. And Jesus said, the pure in heart shall see either heaven or see God. I don't know which one, I can't remember. Pure in heart. So, you got to be, pure in heart. Pure in heart, Soren Kierkegaard said, was willing one thing. Singleness of mind. Right? That's why it's important to stay, on task and stay focused. But in a sociological perspective, Sun Tzu, and you can remember his name because sun, like the sun in the sky for English, but that ain't nothing what it means in Chinese, okay, sun, but it is a coincidence, all right, and that's the way I remember Sun Tzu, because he's like the sun in English, and it just so happens that his name is Sun, and in the English language, sun means that big planet in the sky that is burning with fire. It allows us to live. and they made a god out of the sun before even. They thought our sun, was the god. Well, anyway, we've run up through history, and people like Alan Turing, even though and I shouldn't say even though, it's just, he's a point man, okay? Like, he didn't get any credit, but if it wasn't for him, they never would have cracked the Nazi code of communication, and understood what they were saying and what their plans were, and that's how we defeated them, and that's how some people say, like, ended the war like 2 years earlier. And another thing is, if we didn't drop the atomic bomb, like, I don't know if it was neutron or uranium or whatever it was made out of, but that explosion of fusion, elements of the very primordial nature of all existence and the power of being, that we don't have even a comprehension of the explosive power of what that can be, okay? All that, like, I'm talking about things that I don't even really know about because they're so deep. And when you go to cryptology and the codes and the Enigma machine of the Nazis, you know, and how Alan Turing cracked that code, okay? A man who is devoted to logic and to mathematical principles and deduction. All right, like I'm hitting the nail like down into the board, man, so hard, and it's a 16 penny nail and it ain't coming out, not unless you got a claw hammer and another heavy hammer to hit that claw with and then pull it out. Well, you know what? That's kind of what he did. He cracked the Nazi code, man. He was the shit. He was a gay guy. That's why, you know, he got charged with like indecency or something like that, you know, because he was gay. He saved so many lives. I mean, his work, you know, like he's a hero. He was erased from history. And he was forced to take woman hormone pills, like it's called a chemical castration, because he was gay. Made him grow breasts and everything. And he's taking the woman hormone, you know, to be a woman. That's what they did to him. English, Britain. He Great Britain, okay? He was a British guy. But he did get educated in America too. But you know, he started out in Britain, and I think Britain, Great Britain. You know, you got England. That's over in the Queen's country. That's what they did to him. They made him take the pill. He kept a good sense of humor, you know. But he killed himself with cyanide. And he wasn't even 50 years old. What are you saying, man? Look, I had a woman, you know, write me a letter. I picked it up from the chaplain's office when I was in the Navy, you know. And everything was going to shit. You know, people used to write in letters, you know, to any sailor or any serviceman, something like that. I picked one up out of the box, you know. Just somebody to talk to. Nobody else talking to me. Mysterious Heirs. Look, I still got her picture somewhere. I met her afterward. Mysterious Heirs, as she wrote me. And she wrote a poem, okay? And she said she was Mysterious Heirs. And I wrote back. I was talking to a chaplain. I said, yeah, I got this out of your box. This letter to this woman, this is what I wrote back. He thought that it was so good that he actually said, no, man, he said, look, I'm going to give you a recommendation. I want you to take that thing. I want you to take it up to the department that had to do with, like, media. The media department, you know. Okay? And you tell them, and I said, you know, you give them a copy of your letter and her letter. They published it in the Bird Farm News, and that was the newspaper for my ship, John F. Kennedy. Yeah, they published what I wrote back to her in it. And I still got it. I have to look for it. I hope I have it, because I kept a file of all that stuff when I was in the military. Her name was Mysterious Heirs. And eventually, I found out her real name was Yolanda Ayers. And Ayers wasn't her maiden name. Ayers was her married name because she got married, but then she got divorced, but she kept the name Ayers. And her name was Yolanda. And I don't know, you know, she told me she was clairvoyant and stuff, and I couldn't roll with that at the time, man. My mind wasn't expanded that far. So And I couldn't, like, I didn't think I could, like, keep going with her. I mean, I did meet her and everything like that, even. But I just couldn't accept it at the time. Now, I mean, I could accept it. Now I understand a little bit more. She said she's from the Aztecs. Her, her like genealogy or whatever, went back to the Aztecs. And she actually looked like an Aztec. I mean, she even had like her head was a little bit lower right here, She wore big high hair to kind of make it look bigger and everything, but her head was kind of more like you would see like in a monkey or something, a little down more low, I mean, she's pretty and everything, but I just couldn't go with the clairvoyant thing, and all that, I wasn't there at the time. But I mean, look, I'm just gonna mention a little bit about her. Like, when she sweat, she didn't even stink. Like her underarms, she could be sweating, because we did some stuff together. I don't remember what we were doing, but she was sweating, Well, I was close to her, man. I sniffed her underarms. Yeah, she didn't stink. No, nothing. Because she had detoxified herself and stuff like that. She told me how she did it. Just saying. Look, in this one here, just basically wanted to bring out the point, I think last time I, said, like, or I can't remember now what I called the last one, but my dog speaks or something. I mean, my dogs speak. And they speak to me. And, I feel like I got a little bit lost here because important things, like chunking, in my mind, kind of like, big boulders rolling down a hill. Kind of like that song by Dr. Hook about can't remember how he said it. Mountains, boulders rolling down the hill, balls rolling down the hill, something like that. Rocks, getting my rocks off. I think that's what it's called, Getting My Rocks Off by Dr. Hook. They're a really good song, man. In fact, like I've seen them on the TV, like in concert. They used to have like shows we used to watch on Saturday night, and there's concerts. And when I was a kid, I remember being over at Wayne Maratz's house, watching him about around midnight, it comes on. Well, they'd have on there, I don't know, it wasn't called Saturday Night Live. I can't remember what it was called. I could look it up though on YouTube. They got everything on there. It wasn't Saturday Night Live. I mean, it was before that. I think Saturday Night Live and Sesame Street, they were on at that time. But this was based on music, and they showed concerts and stuff like that. And they showed bands. And I can't remember what it was called. But I know Dr. Hook was on there. And Getting My Rocks Off. And those guys, man, they got into their music. Like, if I could emulate like somebody, they had a lot of fun. I wish I could be like them. Anyway, just because I come from that kind of drug scene where people get relaxed through the help of drugs and let their mind expand or whatever. I mean, look, man, it's not all bad. Some of it is bad. Some people jump out of windows. Some people have bad trips and jump out of windows and die. Look, And you got to understand, I'm coming out of like, my grandpa and stuff, he was in World War II. My dad, he grew up with his dad who was in World War II. My dad never went into the military. He didn't like the military. He didn't like what it all meant. And I remember going to him to the protests against Vietnam. And my dad had long hair and a beard and drove the Harley Davidson motorcycle. Things are complex, man. You think about the Hells Angels, okay, well, you think, that they're bad people and stuff like that because, they deal in drugs and everything like that. And they kill people, and they require money. They're kind of like the mafia. I mean, but in society, man, we have these breakdowns of hierarchical structures of authority, and they dictate, man. They're going to force their way upon somebody else. And it's a constant fight and everything. And that's why I'm saying that, The Art of War by Sun Tzu is necessary reading. I don't know why they don't make it mandatory in school. They should. And they should also make mandatory logic. And they should concentrate on mathematics a little bit more. Mathematics was my worst subject. I had to have my uncle help me, man. I couldn't figure it out because I didn't have no dad with me to help me figure this stuff out. And I'm thinking, maybe, usually dads are a little bit more mathematical in their thinking, than women. That women are usually a little bit more earthy in their thinking. If you look at it okay, in the East, Chinese and stuff like that, there's a certain sense where they accelerate in logic, all right? But they also accelerate in, spiritual tradition. And I don't know. It's good just to get yourself a good education and be well-rounded. Okay, and that is, after all, the whole point of the Coat of Many Colors from Jacob. Let's see. I think Jacob received the Coat of Many Colors, and he received that from his dad, who was maybe Isaac. Maybe. I'm not sure. The stories, haven't looked at them in a long time and stuff. But, Coat of Many Colors, that's a mythology. That's a story. It's a real story, okay? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying it's a mythology because it's elevated. It's an elevated story to the point of mythology. And Coat of Many Colors means because, look, they have a whole philosophy of color. You could look up in the encyclopedia the philosophy of color, and you'll find the philosophy of color. Colors mean things. And, okay, you got black, you got purple, you got blue, you got yellow, you got red. Okay, if you look at the color wheel, you got certain colors, and then you got mixture of those colors. You can look at the rainbow, you can see the colors beholden in the sky. Okay, and it just, that it means something. Okay, it does mean something. And you can put a philosophy to that color, what that color means. And, I don't remember what I was talking about the philosophy of color for. But Jacob, his coat of many colors. Okay. I'm just going to tell you. Black can mean sin. Alright? Purple can mean royalty. Blue can mean heaven. like, you know, it's clouds. You know. And yellow can mean like the I don't know, yellowness of, like, you know, the throne of God or something. I don't know, gold and everything, yellow, you know, like shiny yellow, angels, God, all that kind of stuff. You know, violet was always one of my favorite colors. I'd have to think a little bit to tell you what violet means to me, but it means something. I feel a certain feeling when I think about violet. When I used to color with my coloring crayons, like coloring in the lines in the coloring book and everything like that, and making things, giving things color. See, colors have feeling, man. Colors have feeling. And colors mean feeling. See? And they resonate. That's a secret language right there. That's why you know that there are such things as secret languages and secret codes. Okay? And a good musician, you know, going to be in touch with them codes. Like you look at, like, you know, the blues, for example. I was talking about the blues, B.B. King and, you know, John Lee Hooker and Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, you know. They learned from the blues guys. Elvis Presley come along and he poured over white people into the blues, you know. Look, these things are like, you know, these things are like codes to speak from heart to heart. And people understand. And the blues is born like in the deep part of your heart, man. Where's purple? Well, it's purple down there. You know, your blood, if it don't get exposed to oxygen, it's purple. Artery blood, it looks different than the other kind of blood in your other veins. You know, you got arterial veins, and then you got other veins. You know, some of your veins, you know, like I know this from shooting up. Some of your veins go up, and some of your veins go down. The blood flows up one way, and the blood flows down the other way. You know? Some of it goes straight to your brain. Look, man. I'm just going to tell you, some things are so severe. I mean, I don't know really even why I'm saying this. But this guy that used to live here, his name is Raymond Troy. He's the one who hit me in the back with a sword. He got thrown in jail, and I got thrown in jail too. Just like the time I got punched in the mouth when I was in the Navy. Not punched in the mouth, punched in the eye or something, I don't know. But I got punched in the face. And the guy was above me in rank. And I got, with captain's mask, I busted for disrespect, had to do my extra duty, all that stuff. Well, he did too. All right. He's the guy who shredded my medical record. Had to get all my shots over. I had the same kind of repetition, the same kind of situation with this guy Raymond Troy. He hit me in the back with a sword, you know, when I was just trying to talk to somebody, this other girl, Lisa in Sulaco, you know, in my house, in my own house, you know. I got thrown in jail. I didn't even do nothing. I got hit in the back with a sword. I still got thrown in jail. Because they said that, you know, she had marks on her body, you know, from me. It was a bunch of bullshit. That was a bunch of bullshit. I didn't do shit, all right? But I got thrown in jail just like him. Cop told me, you're a bad man. And he believed what the woman said. Look. Anyway, this other guy, you know, that they knew, because her and him, you know, he brought her here. Okay, they knew each other. Okay, I remember him talking one time about how this other guy used to take a syringe, pop it in Ray's neck vein, wherever it is. All right, I guess the one that I was gonna cut, which I think is on this side. But whatever it is, man, pop it at a vein in the neck and squish that syringe of methamphetamine right in up there, right into the neck, right to the brain. That's what he used to do. You know, they used to talk about having ice cream in the morning. That was methamphetamine. Anyway, he's dead now. He died in jail. He was real thirsty. He got arrested because, he was knocking on somebody's door and needed some water. Well, I was told that fentanyl makes you real thirsty. But when you drink the water, it puts it into your system even more, and that's when it kills you. Like, I don't know how it all works. I'm glad that I'm alive. I'm glad that nobody ever gave me fentanyl. Sometimes they call them hot shots. Well, I've been given a hot shot before, but it wasn't with fentanyl. Look, I'm gonna have to actually, get back to the art of war, because really, I mean, that's what it all boils down to in the material life, in philosophy, you can break it down in between, material ideology and or what they call materialism and ideology or idealism or something like that. Always differentiate, between matter and thought, or matter and idea. Consciousness and matter, is it one? Can they be separated? Are they independent of each other? That kind of stuff. And I'm just saying, look, man, you, my grandchildren, I'm telling you, you better take heed to Sun Tzu, because if you're gonna be rolling in this world, you better learn Sun Tzu, because that's the rules of the road. It has to do with misinformation, the principle of indirection, the principle of responsibility, and hierarchy and order. And it goes deep, all right? A lot of mechanisms. And got over here Alan Turing, the man who cracked the Nazi code. He didn't even get any reward for it. And since he was gay, they gave him chemical castration, and he ended up just taking his own life with cyanide. And he's a hero, man. If it wasn't for him, we would have dropped an atomic bomb on Germany. If it wasn't for him, we would have did that. We would have dropped the atomic bomb on Nagasaki or Hiroshima. We would have dropped it on Germany. But anyway, he studied, logic. And, like I said, like having a machine be able to get things down to the core between two propositions, one being true, one being false, find out which one was right, all right, through the process of mathematics and logic. Like, I don't really know what the bottom line point is on this one here for me and for you. If not, I just gotta go back to, Sid. I'm an ordinary kid. And, coming from me and dog. And, for me, I mean, dog and God are two sides of the same coin. And God and dog, okay, well, I'm going to concentrate on dog, because I know dog better than I know God. And dog is loyal, and dog fights. And dog is every bit as spiritual as anything I ever knew in my whole entire lifetime, all right? Because pure, dog is pure, singleness of mind, And dog is loving. Dog will give dog's life for a cause. Well, I got that spirit. I'll give my life for a cause too, because I already know now, because it's a reflex. See? You might not think that you would do it, but you will do it. You get put in a situation, you will do it. You will, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and die for a cause if need be. You will do that. I've already proven in my life in many situations that I will do it. So, I'm not really worried about, that no more. Like, I'm not thinking I'm a coward or nothing like that. So, I ain't got to be like that no more. Like, thinking that I might be a coward because I'm afraid to be in the dark by myself. No. I already crossed that bridge. I already know about all that. But, that's dog, man. Dog is instinct. And dog has life. Dog will try to survive. But dog don't even know that it's going to die. Dog don't know nothing about death. A little bit, kind of knows, has an idea, gets some clues. Seeing how they respond, like when somebody dies, and when a train go by after Commander Worf and Mickey and Nicky went after the train and got killed, ever since then, dogs, when the train makes that whistle blow, and dogs, they're not doing it so much anymore, but they used to howl after that happened. Like they knew what happened. The war went down there, at that train whistle. From that whistle, they knew. The Commander Worf and Mickey and Nicky, they were leaders of the pack. They were out ahead. They were the point. The other dogs, a little bit slower and stuff, were a little bit further behind. I rescued them dogs. But the train already went by anyway. Killed Mickey, Nicky, and Worf. It was very sad. Had to... Like, I couldn't even... I don't know. Well, I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to call this one Mickey, Nicky, and Worf. Alright? Because, look, I talk a lot about here. But, it can be summated into Mickey, Nicky, and Worf, because that's what I understand about dog. And Sun Tzu is about one aspect of dog that is warrior. That's Sun Tzu. The other more spiritual side is Buddha and Jesus Christ, but you have to pay attention to Sun Tzu too. All right, bye.